adjustment that we're going to hear. We're also going to try to give you an update on the Placer County Conservation Plan, which is a lot has happened on that, and I don't believe we've been before you with that for quite some time, so we'll get you updated on where that is in the process. September 10th, that Planning Commission meeting, right now we don't have anything penciled in for that time, so that may be a canceled meeting. We do have another meeting September 24th where we will have some projects going forward. Some other projects to note, just so you know, the winery ordinance, the environmental document, the mitigated negative declaration was out for public review. That public review period ended. We did receive a half a dozen comment letters. So right now staff is looking at those letters and seeing what the content is and trying to figure out what our next move is before we bring it back to the commission. So I should know more by the next meeting. That will not be on the next Planning Commission agenda, though. Let's see, other projects to note. We're getting here in the last quarter of the year. Bickford Ranch is coming along. We hope to have that to the Planning Commission this fall. Same with the Squaw Valley specific plan. Our goal is by the end of the year to have that come before you too. So a couple larger projects as well that you have to look forward to. For the Board of Supervisors hearings on August 18th, the board is going to be taking up the temporary conditional use permit modification for the County Government Center Emergency Shelter. That's the homeless shelter, and I think they're looking to extend that site access agreement for the shelter for a period of 1 year. So that will be on August 18th at the Board of Supervisors.
I thought they were going to extend it to March.
Extend it to March or from?
March. At least that's what the paper said.
And that made Jerry? I did see Jerry.
I think it's set.
Is that correct?
Yeah.
Thank you. I misspoke. That's why I got the smart people in the room so they can answer those questions.
I misunderstood that.
And that's all I have. So, any questions? Otherwise, we can get moving.
I would be helpful if I could get sort of a synopsis of the 300 and some letters that we got for Squaw Valley.
Yes, and we can a synopsis. I can provide those to you electronically if you wanted to see those letters, or if you wanted to. Are you looking for an overview or a presentation? I'm not sure.
Well, at TRPA this month, last month now, but the last TRPA meeting, there was a great deal of consternation about the way we were applying and handling Squaw Valley, and I just wanted to maybe just keep up to speed on it because they're going to try and have it brought back to TRPA and make it an item on the agenda, which means then that they could take action on it of some sort. There was a discussion about trying to find a way to get TRPA to expand its jurisdiction out to Squaw Valley and North Star and others. And I just am curious to see if we're just getting lots of letters from the same people or if we're getting new information, that kind of exposure.
Yeah, we can, besides, providing you with those comments, we may be able to give you an update. I don't know if that would be appropriate at the commission level. Or if
we can. All the comment letters are now online on the county's website. There were over 300 comment letters received. Some are significantly long, as 180 pages. So I know that staff and the consultant assent are still sifting through them. It might be at this point a little premature to provide an update until staff and assent have had a time to really digest all the comments.
Well, maybe if it is premature, we should just wait until they're all analyzed, and you could give us the comments as to whether they were accurate or inaccurate in their request. And I think that would be very helpful.
Okay.
At some point.
Yeah, I'd think, at least for myself, if you have the ability, if there's 300 and 100 of them are stating sort of the same thing, if it can consolidate it down to what their issues are, and so that way we have it, so we're not having to go through 300 to get maybe four different points out of 300 letters.
Given the potential of TRPA jumping into this thing, I think we need to be pretty responsive now, because if they're going to bring it up at their next meeting, this could move pretty quickly. So, do we have a kind of a time frame of when staff will have at least some general feedback on these letters?
So right now, what we have, our agreement with the EIR consultant was to spend the next 90 to 120 days responding to those comments. So during that time period, obviously, we're going to have a good idea of what the county's response is going to be. But I don't think there's any reason we couldn't during that period have just an update for the commission, just to give you a better overview of what the comments received were. Just because there's 300 letters, it might be a dozen issues that were highlighted in those letters.
Again, my concern is, Larry's concern is that if they open this door, it's going to be very hard to close it, and it could get pretty ugly. And they apparently are accusing Placer County of some, certainly ineptness in handling this, and I just hate to see them get their nose under the tent on this one when it's not outside of their jurisdiction. And that's just,
It might be helpful too if you could, if you think you have your arms around a dozen issues or whatever it turns out to be, that you could let me know between now and the governing board meeting, so that if it comes up, I can suggest that we continue it and don't get involved in it until we have an idea of what we're talking about. Because I can't speak to or for something if I don't know what I'm talking about. And I think it would be helpful to at least give me some tools to ask for more time if necessary, or whatever seems appropriate.
Okay. Well, do you know the date of the next meeting, governing board meeting offhand?
Well, it's coming up pretty close, probably in another 10 days.
Okay.
would it be helpful, Larry, to have somebody from the county there?
I've already planted that seed with David through his office, so I don't know whether I choose to let him make that decision, the county exec's office, to see if they want to be there to speak to it. And I would encourage them to, based on the comments that were made at the last meeting, that it was a little bit concerning, and I chose not to address it at that point because I didn't feel I had the information I needed to respond. But I think it would be helpful if we had some sort of a presentation available. Whoever wants to come and address, or if it's going to be given to me, that's fine too. I would frankly think David would be a better one to do it, probably a county exec or something. But at any rate, why don't you just move it around a little bit and see what you come up with?
Okay, well, yeah, I mean, outside of this forum, we'll see what information we can get for you, and then so you can be prepared for, the meeting that you have to attend.
I did talk to Jennifer about it at Tuesday morning breakfast the other day, and so she's aware of it, so she may be working on it too. I don't know.
Okay.
Merchant, that is.
Yes.
I think what the county is grappling with is when it came to the groups that commented, it wasn't just a comment letter. There were also hundreds of pages of analysis from their experts and studies, and each one of those has to be reviewed by staff and the environmental consultant and responded to. So at this point, it's a matter of kind of, if you will, peeling the onion to separate out, and especially to come up with a list of the general topics of where the comments are falling in. You can see a trend. It's air quality, traffic, water assessment. Those were three big ones that I saw when I read all through the comments. But at this point, it probably is premature for TRPA to be considering it in an open forum when the county hasn't even had a chance to thoroughly review, assess, and begin the responses to those comments. But we could still provide a summary of sorts.
Absolutely.
Well, yeah, what happens is they get up and make accusations against what's going on, and it sounded like it was something that could be considered, you know. And then they did. I don't know why they thought they could go outside the boundaries of the agency and take on, but they did highlight, as you did, air quality and transportation, things like that. And so I think unfortunately the members from the state on the governing board said, oh, well, we better bring it. They suggested it be brought back for open discussion as an agenda item, which I was not pleased about, but not much you can do. So I'd just like to neutralize some of that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll follow up with you, Larry.
Pardon? Oh.
We will follow.
Well, I was just going to say, I agree with council that they're really jumping ahead on this one to make judgments now. But I think that the county has to take this very seriously and not just throw Larry to the wolves, but to have somebody there to help defend him, that this is, you guys got to push back here and wait and let us do our job. And then if you feel like there's something wrong with the job we're doing, then we want to hear from you. We want to have a dialogue with you to talk about it, rather than them, making these arbitrary decisions without us really having the opportunity to push back on it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, at this time, if there's anyone from the public that would like to address any issue other than issues that are before us today, now is your chance. Seeing none, we'll go to our consent agenda. We do have one item on our consent agenda. It's the Cabin Creek Biomass Facility Project, extension of time and conditional use permit, previously adopted environmental impact report. So,
if it's appropriate, Mr. Chairman, I'll just move we approve the consent agenda.
Oh, okay. I was going to ask if there's anybody out in the public that would like this pulled, or if there's seeing no one. Yes, we'll.
Second.
Got a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. Roll call.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, now we're up to our item 1, 1005 item. Epps Residence, Alpine Meadows Estate Subdivision, map modification.
Thank you. Alan Bruce, the project planner for this particular project for the Epps. And this particular project has been before the Planning Commission in the past. In 2008, it did expire. So we have a new map modification which requires Planning Commission action. I'm going to go over the project real briefly and its location. It is in Alpine Meadows. This is the Pine Trail. There's a cul-de-sac at this location. This is the residence where they would like to have the garage addition to have a 10-foot setback from property line, 9 feet to eave, and there will be an entryway as well on this particular project. The zoning around the area, it is RSPD, residential single family, so residential garages are a permitted use as accessory. This is the proposal at this location. As mentioned, they are asking, there's a 20-foot map setback. They're asking for 10 feet from property line, 9 feet to eave. Here's the entryway, 2-car garage. They do meet our other requirements that we do look at, making sure that they have a 20-foot setback from the front of the garage to the edge of pavement for snow removal. So that was something the staff did take a look at and found it was acceptable. This is the proposed addition, as you can see here in the entryway. This is the existing conditions. Staff, as we look at these things, making special circumstances to see the neighborhood, if there's any other Properties that are in the front setback, there is, you can see here across the street, there's an entryway that actually goes up to the property line. We did take a look around and did see this is acceptable. They'd be making this better situation too. The paved area, they'd be pushing it back for the garage so the cars will not be sticking out as much as you can see here. And with that, we did find it categorically exempt pursuant to CEQA, and that'd be Class 5A1, minor alterations in land use. And we are recommending to the Planning Commission approval for the 10-foot setback to structure, 9-foot to eaves on Lot 301 in the Alpine Meadows Estates Subdivision number 9. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them, and I do have the applicant. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan. Would the applicant like to speak on this?
I'd just like to get it approved. Move forward.
Okay, is there anyone else in the public that would like to speak on this issue? Seeing none, I'll close it off and bring it back to the commission for discussion or motion.
I guess I would say that
Go ahead.
actually my question was answered, because I know we've had a discussion here about snow removal and the problems. But in this case, 20 feet apparently is there,
Yeah.
and so that's not a problem.
Yeah,
So,
actually going to make a better situation because it gets the vehicles back further.
Further
Yeah.
off the road.
so I just wanted to acknowledge that it complies with the issue that we've heard here at the commission before. I'd make the motion that we, have to read through this.
That's right there, up on the board.
Okay, make the motion that we find the project categorically exempt under the California Environmental Quality Act, and that we approve the final map modification to the Alpine Meadows Estates Subdivision number 9, final map to modify the 20-foot building setback on lot 301 to allow for front yard setback of 10 feet to structure, 9 feet from the eaves from the south property line, in order to permit the construction of an attached two-car garage. And let me see,
CEQA findings, probably.
yeah, well, we did the CEQA findings with the category exempt, as well as the, I guess we did it all, didn't we?
Yep.
Okay,
So we have a
that's the motion.
second.
Second?
Motion second, roll call.
Mr. Sevison?
Yes.
Mr. Gray is absent. Mr. Moss absent. Mr. Johnson?
Yes?
Mr. Nader?
Yes.
Mr. Ricucci is absent. Mr. Denayo?
Yes. And if anybody would wish to appeal this, they have 10 calendar days to file an appeal, and the appeal fee is $552. So with that, you're good to go.
Do you like these?
Yeah, would you?
Your large map? Sure. I can't keep them all.
Yeah, there.
Thank you, gentlemen.
You're welcome. Okay, we'll go ahead to item number 2, Granite Estates Professional Center minor land division and minor boundary line adjustment conditional use permit and mitigated negative declaration.
Thank you, Chairman Denial. My name is Roy Schaefer. I'm the project planner. This is the site off of Douglas Boulevard, on the south side of Douglas Boulevard, and the project is on both sides of the Granite Estates Drive. This shows the 4 different buildings that are proposed. The building on the west is 8,000 square foot, and then the other 2 in the middle, building 2 and 3 to the east, are 4,425 square feet. And then the building towards the, on the eastern end is 3,800 square feet. And it shows in the site plan there's 109 parking stalls required, and that's what they have for this project. And the west 3 buildings are for medical office buildings, And then the one on the east is just a general office building. And this shows the tentative parcel map. There's 4 different parcels created, one for each of the buildings. And this is the logic of this is that each one of those could be separately sold at some point if that's desired. And also with the 109 parking spaces, there'd be a reciprocal parking agreement and access agreement for this whole development for the 109 parking stalls. This shows the minor boundary line adjustment, and in the black it shows the darkened area, the new property line. And currently that parcel to the east is 1 acre, and they would create a new parcel with the minor boundary line adjustment to create a 1.6 acre parcel on the very east end of the project site. This shows the elevations, and this is the building, the biggest building on the west is 8,000 square feet, and the top one is the north elevation, what you'd see from the Douglas Boulevard. And then the other one is the east elevation. And with this design on Douglas Boulevard in Appendix 1 of the new revised Granite Bay Community Plan, there's design standards that they have followed. And the design is craftsman-style village design, is how it's explained in the community plan. And we feel that the architect, Jeff Stoll, has met those requirements with these 4 building designs. And this is the proposed west elevation of the first building, the 8,000 square foot building, and then the south elevation. And then buildings 2, 3, 4 shows the elevations from Douglas Boulevard is the first, the top one. And they're all single-story buildings with overhang, varied use of materials. This is landscaping, and with this in the islands of the parking areas, there's landscaping, and then along Douglas Boulevard, and then along the Grand Estates Drive direction as well, and then at the rear area of the project. This shows the first 3 buildings, and then this is the one on the east side of Grand Estates Drive. And then this whole lot here would be the one that benefits from the minor boundary line adjustment. And this also shows in the median here, that's going to be some changes to that, some landscaping out in that area, this part of the Douglas Boulevard. And just in terms of background, on page 2 of the staff report, I indicated that Granite Bay Retail and Car Wash was previously approved at this site as for 3 commercial buildings and an automated car wash, and it was approved in 2007. And there was also a community plan amendment and rezone of the first of these 2 lots, just the one on the west, and it was an RAB 100 with a PD designation. And back in 2007, it was rezoned, and there's a community plan amendment to the C2 general commercial designation. And subsequent to the approval, the use permit expired in 2009. So this project had to go through the entire environmental review process, and with a new proposal, which is the conditional use permit, minor boundary line adjustment, and tentative parcel map. The other thing I should mention, on July 1st, this was taken to the Granite Bay MAC as an action item. It was previously there as an information item only. And there was a 5-1 vote, and there's a letter attached to the staff report to recommend to the Planning Commission approval of this project. And there's one other thing I need to take care of. On page 8, there's a typo on the first condition. Condition number 1, instead, the total building square footage should read 20,650, not 26,650, so that's one typo. It needs to be corrected. And the applicant has a team here today. The civil engineer, Ron Wood, the architect, Jeff Stoll, is here, and transportation engineer, Ken Anderson, is also here for the applicant team. And if there's any questions at this time, I could answer. If they're concerning grading, traffic, or drainage, I'd refer those to Phil France in engineering surveying.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Well, I just have, this is really just background information. It's clearly not an issue, but I noticed that there's a building setback line, and building number 1 clearly is outside of it, but that building setback goes way out in the parking lot in an area that's already graded and going to be parking lot in the future. So I just was kind of stumbling a little bit. What's that setback for? What's the nature of it?
I'm not quite sure what you're referring to again, the setback?
Go back a couple maps.
Okay.
Yeah, that one. It shows a 100-year floodplain, and then above it is another little line that shows a building setback, and of course it gets close to building number 1, but clearly they've located the building so it's outside the setback, but it's within the the parking lot, and if you go to the site, that area's already been graded, and so I'm just wondering what the nature of that line on the map, or why.
I think it's 100-year flood. Okay. Yeah, it just goes.
Yeah,
Oh, okay. Yeah,
they might have. Did,
and that's for building setback.
For the building itself.
So there is some parking allowed into that. I mean that when you look at this part here, in this area, that's the line here. So there is parking spaces in there only.
So the only thing that would apply to is a building,
Yes,
is what you're saying.
typically.
I just thought it was a little strange that there'd be that setback that goes so far out into the parcel, and the parcel has been graded already, leveled.
Yeah.
But that answers my question.
Okay.
Roy, I've got the letter in front of me from the MAC, and they obviously pointed out a couple of things that they talked about, that had discussions, so it's mostly around traffic issues. But they did not make any recommendations that there be any changes to some of the issues that were brought up related to traffic. I guess I'm asking that question. They didn't make any recommendations of changes then. They accepted it as it is, right?
I think that's correct. There was
Okay.
discussion of traffic from members of the public and also amongst the MAC members. And Ron Wood was there, civil engineer for the project, described some of the issues related to the traffic, and I think that'll also be part of his presentation today.
All right. Well, at first, and this will be for Phil, I just kind of want to understand the county's position on the issues that were brought up on the traffic. The U-turn at Berg, is there an issue with making that an intersection where you can't do a U-turn?
So currently, U-turns are allowed at that intersection.
Right.
The project was, the traffic trips from the project were looked at regarding U-turns at that intersection, and it was determined that the trips from the project would not significantly impact any U-turn capabilities at that intersection.
What about, the speeds obviously on Douglas are pretty high, and making U-turns sometimes, whether people are making the right judgment about time and space to make a U-turn. Is the county taking that into consideration at that intersection?
Yes, we've looked at that, and we've determined that there's enough gaps in between the traffic to be able to allow the U-turns.
There was also talk about a de-acceleration lane, which I didn't see in the plans here, and also an acceleration lane. And I think we've talked about acceleration lanes before on Douglas. And I think the position of the county is that they would prefer that people wait until the traffic is clear to pull out rather than pulling out into traffic and trying to merge into a rather fast-moving traffic. Is that right, as far as an acceleration lane?
Of course, the more time, the gaps that you have, the better. The project does provide for our standard encroachment, which at this location there is a slight taper. You can't see it because the existing shoulder is so wide. I think it's an 8-foot shoulder in that location. So it actually is set back. The curb return here is set back, I think, an additional 4 feet. So you have 12 feet outside of the travel lane that allows someone to kind of get up to speed before they get into the travel lane somewhere in this location.
That is pretty short, again, for the speeds that are along Douglas. As far as de-acceleration, it doesn't look like there's a whole lot for them to kind of get out of traffic to pull into that.
It doesn't look like that, but again, the shoulder where the project is kind of tying in right here, there's an additional 8 feet of shoulder, which is where the vehicle will begin to pull off of the road. So it does meet our standard for
so there's sort of a safe pocket for them to pull in.
It's not a pocket. It's just kind of a taper.
Okay.
That allows them, when they finally are decelerating to make the turn, they're outside of the travel lane.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
I should mention, too, that this project shown here is proposed 2 medical office buildings, and also it's going through environmental review. We're kind of maybe at the midpoint of our environmental review process for this project, so it's just shown here.
Is there, with that happening, is there any point, I know that I think the community doesn't want a light at that intersection, but is there some thought that might have a light at some point at Bird?
At this point in time, no.
Okay.
That's not under consideration.
Okay, any other questions?
I guess I have one question for Roy, and that is, in one of the drawings it shows the circles.
Is that landscaping?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, like that. Are those designating different types of plantings? In other words, some that are traditional, some that are tolerant of drought?
I think these.
So you get a mixture of plantings?
These are showing, kind of the islands, those. But all the plantings today have to be drought tolerant.
Okay.
We're very concerned with allowing water to be applied irrigation today, particularly in Granite Bay. So there's really a close look at drought tolerant. And sometimes from the planner's perspective, if we see a tree that shouldn't be there, we contact the architect, say you got to take this out. Usually we got what we should have.
It's kind of a strange scenario, actually, because I'm sure right now all we can think about is having it drought tolerant. In 2 years when we've got floods going on or something, and you'll say, oh, I wish we'd have mixed it so we have a mixture of trees, because the drought tolerant trees aren't going to do well under the other conditions. So I guess my thought was that it seemed practical to mix so you have some of each, so you don't, if the weather changes back to a damper climate again, why all the drought tolerant stuff doesn't get ruined.
And we also have an updated landscape design guidelines that were updated a couple of years ago. And there's certain plants there that are listed, so you really can't go outside of those. If you got something that would use too much water or not grow as well in this climate, I've had trees that were more coastal oriented, and you'd say, no, you don't want those here.
Yeah, you don't want redwood trees.
Yeah, exactly.
How about eucalyptus? Nobody wants them.
One thing they'd suggest is like a deodar cedar versus the redwood.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering if there was any thought given to that. I'm sure it's going to be just fine, and they'll probably adjust it as needed anyway. So.
And I think the water districts now take a close look at all of this stuff that's coming into a new commercial project.
Thank you, Roy.
Okay. Thank you, Roy. Okay, would the applicant like to get up? It looks like you have a presentation for us.
Sure. Well, good morning. Glad to be here, and thank you for the opportunity to present this project to you and consider it for us. My name is Ron Wood. I'm with RFE Engineering, the civil engineer on the project. And Roy has done a great job giving an overview of the project, and we want to give a few key points to just point out to you. We do have quite a few of our project team here. I'd like to introduce you to them. First, it's the owner, Tim Gagnier and Russ Kuhn, and they are available if you have questions for them. And then the architect, as Roy had said, Jeff Stoll, and he'll be here to chat with you a little bit. And then also Ken Anderson, the traffic engineer. If you have questions of him, he'll be available. So we've been working with county staff and members of the community of Granite Bay since the fall, working on this project to develop it. And we've gone through some changes as we've progressed, and I think we've come up with a project that will really be an asset and be compatible with the existing uses there on Douglas Boulevard within the area. We do meet as Roy had said, we meet the requirements of the Granite Bay Community Plan, and we are going to be providing medical services as well as other services to the community closer to their homes, so that's a benefit to the community. And a few of the things I'd like to point out are some of the things that are consistent with the Granite Bay Community Plan and just some items in the plan that I think it's good for you to see. First is the building design, and Jeff will really get into the detail for that with you a little bit more. Then the other thing is if you look at the plan, maybe go back to the site plan would be good. There, right there. So you can see that the parking is pretty much in the back, and we tried to put as much as we could in the back to minimize the visibility from Douglas Boulevard. And then additional, we do have the landscape area along the front, so that's 29 feet or wider, and so that will provide another buffer between Douglas Boulevard and the project. And then within that landscape area, we'll have an 8-foot meandering walk, which will be just another link of that entire walkway on the south side of Douglas Boulevard that's in the Granite Bay Community Plan. And then on the, Phil had mentioned this too, we have wider shoulders there that will be wide enough for a Class 2 bike lane, so it'll continue that bike lane through the project there. And of course all the landscaping, as Roy had mentioned, will meet the requirements of the applicable county standards as well as the community plan standards. So another aspect of this, to be consistent with the current Placer County MS4, we will have low-impact development water quality BMPs where water from the impervious areas from the site will go through these and they'll be filtered infiltration on the smaller storms before it's discharged into the storm drain and ultimately the Strap Ravine. And that'll be also consistent with the state general permit. And even during construction, we'll have the permits from the state for that construction. If you notice, too, if you go back to the site plan, there really aren't any new direct accesses to Douglas. So all of the accesses from the project, both from the west and from the east, will be directly on Granite Estates Drive, which is an existing road. There will be a little bit of widening in that to make it meet more of the county standards. And in fact, there will be an access easement to Parcel 4, which is the last one on the east, to allow access from that larger undeveloped property to the east through that driveway to Granite Estates. So we're not anticipating any direct connections to Douglas Boulevard in this area. The other thing that Roy had mentioned, based on the traffic study, we will be extending the left turn lanes on Douglas, both the one left going into Berg Street as well as the left coming into Granite Estates Drive. We'll be extending them, based on those recommendations, about 100 feet each, plus the length of the tapers. That will require a little manipulation of the island in there, but the landscaping that will be proposed in there will be consistent with what is out there right now. So I think it's a good project. We're excited about being part of a project that we think will really be a positive positive to this area and to this area of Douglas, because right now, if you're familiar with it, it's just a graded area that's just nothing's going on. So with that, I'd like to have Jeff come up now and share about the building. Thank you.
Thanks, Ron. Thank you for having us here today. I guess Ron did a good job of explaining the general siding of the structure, so I won't get into that so much unless you have any questions or comments. But I want to explain a little bit about what we went through as a little metamorphosis of the architectural design. Last fall, when we first sat down and came up with a conceptual design for the buildings, as we typically do as architects, we sit down with our clients and ask what are your goals and objectives, what styles do you like, etc. It was not out of disrespect in any way, shape, or form for the Granite Bay Community Plan, but more an acknowledgement that there are plenty of different styles within, certain constraints that are, in the Granite Bay Community Plan. And so the buyer of the first building, the building 1 as it's referred to on the drawings, this building you're looking at here, she came forward with a couple of projects that she really liked and wanted to draw some inspiration from, one of those being the Quarry Ponds Town Center, a couple properties over, and another project down in Roseville, just down Douglas a ways. And so we looked at both of those projects and tried to pull some inspiration and develop something that the team felt good about. And as it was mentioned, thanks, Roy, we took it to the Granite Bay Municipal Advisory Council, presented it, got some feedback, a little bit of, some objections to the architectural design. We then took it to the Granite Bay Community Association and definitely heard loud and clearly that they really wanted us to conform more strictly to the Granite Bay Community Plan and specifically the Douglas Corridor design guidelines. So we went back to the table. Of course, my staff always likes that. They get to design more, right? So we spent some time looking at other options, and through the course of going back and meeting with the Granite Bay Community Association, Sandy Harris was very helpful in kind of helping provide some input. We ended up going back to the Granite Bay MAC last month, and so that's kind of how we got to here. I did want to mention that the developers did reach out, tried to reach out to the adjacent property owner on the west, thinking that if anybody has any real objection to the architecture, it might be the adjacent property owner. And to date, my understanding is we haven't heard anything back from them. So I guess my point is we feel like over the last 10 months or so, we've made an effort through the public outreach to garner input and support. I know that there was that one council member at the MAC that had voted no to not support the project, but I will tell you, we never got any verbal feedback from him, so I don't know what his concerns were. But by all means, we want to please the community, and we feel like we have taken any input that has come from the community and developed this, and we feel good about it. We do feel like it'll be an asset to the community, and also from an economic development standpoint, we think it's a very valid project, and we ask that you approve the project today with the conditions and mitigation efforts that county staff has put before us. And on that note, if you have any questions, be happy to answer them. We would appreciate any time if there are any public comments or concerns today. We'd request time to address those. But in closing, thank you for having us here today, and we hope that you find the project acceptable.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? No. Okay,
thank you.
Jeff. Okay, is there anyone from the public that would like to get up and speak on this project?
Good morning, Sandy Harris, Granite Bay Community Association. We did meet with Jeff and Ron 2 or 3 times on this project, and we appreciate they responded to our concerns and our input. I haven't read the conditions, so I don't know. A couple things I had suggested in an original letter was that they use solar power and recirculate the gray water for the landscaping outside, if that's possible. The project, is fine the way it is, but our concern is that traffic making left turns, because as you saw, there's a proposed development practically across the street, and I use that Berg turn a lot. And it gets kind of difficult sometimes if you're coming south on Berg and you want to turn right on Douglas. If you have people making U-turns, you don't know. You think they're going to go straight up Berg, and they don't. They do a U-turn there. And one day I was coming east on Douglas and was going to make the U-turn there, and there was a big trailer truck in front of me. Probably, I don't know, he was delivering stuff to the feed store there or what. But anyway, he made a left turn, and I assumed he was going all the way up Berg. He didn't. He went up a few feet, did a U-turn to come back onto Douglas to go west, and here I am stuck out on Douglas because I'm following him to make my left turn. That's a concern, and you can see that this new development is going to have an access very short distance from Berg, and I can see conflicts coming in there, and that's been a concern of ours from the start. And I wonder if when they do propose that development further down the road, if they don't make an access on Douglas, that you have to access it on Berg, because you're going to have conflicting traffic making turns there, U-turns, right turns, and if you're making a U-turn there and you want to get into that development, you're going to have to do it very quickly. So there's kind of a problem there, and I know the traffic department doesn't see a conflict with this development, but I'm looking down the road. You have 3 more buildings coming in here, that project, and you just recently approved the Corey Ponds development, which is going to be coming out and doing U-turns a little bit further up and coming down. And you're going to have a lot of traffic there conflicting. It's going to be a mess. And the community does not want a single light there, that's for sure. So that's just the main concern. But as far as this project goes, they were very receptive to the input that we gave, and we enjoyed working with them. But I'm still concerned about that traffic situation, as you brought up.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the public that would like to speak on this issue? Okay, seeing none, I'll close it off to the public and bring it back to the commission.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question on that. I'll ask Public Works if I can. When a situation like this exists and it's okay pretty much today and nothing needs to be done immediately, but as traffic and conditions worsen in time, you would have the authorization based on your own traffic studies to change the traffic pattern area if you saw it was worthwhile to do at any time, wouldn't you?
I think certainly if there was an issue that developed over time and there was some safety concern, that the county would be able to make some adjustments to that.
Okay, thank you.
Let me see, didn't I hear that there was going to be some modifications to that U-turn area in the plan too?
So this particular figure shows this gray area in this location here and in this location here. That's currently a raised landscape median. So this will be new pavement that will lengthen this turn lane here into the site, and some additional pavement here that will also lengthen this turn lane. That's what was described earlier.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments?
Well, one thing, and this is just informational question. I guess I'm assuming that the Granite Estates Drive is an easement and not a public road?
Correct, it's a private easement.
Okay.
Private road.
Okay. Any further comments, suggestion, motion?
How about the guy on your right? Isn't he the motion maker?
Well, I'm looking at it on page 5, and do I have to read all of this?
Yeah.
Do you have it? Oh, okay, there you got it. All right.
Yeah,
That's a shorter version of it. Okay. Yeah, I'd like to make a motion that we adopt a mitigated negative declaration and a mitigation monitoring program and approve a tentative parcel map to create 4 lots. I'm not going to go into the rest of that. Approve a minor boundary line adjustment to enlarge the most eastern lot from 1 acre to approximately 1.61 acres. And approve the conditional use permit to allow 3 medical office buildings and 1 general office building with associated parking and circulation areas on parcels. Good enough.
Could you add to that motion that it's the conditions approved as amended for condition number 1?
Oh, right.
And subject to the findings set forth in the staff report.
Right. So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Roll call.
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Yes. Motion carries. If anybody would want to appeal, you have 10 calendar days, and the appeal fee is $552. Okay, and thank you all for showing up today.
You want your maps?
Ron?
Yeah.
Do you want some of this?
Yeah.
Would you like to have it for your
The recycle for your files.
recycle or to use for permits or whatever? Good luck.
You can leave it here to recycle too.
Yeah.